I am witnessing the acceleration of what intelligence communities have quietly designated as the most dangerous technological race in human history, and yet the vast majority of global leadership remains either unaware or deliberately silent about the civilizational implications of quantum computing's imminent breakthrough. As I analyze classified briefings, corporate research timelines, and the systematic repositioning of major powers around quantum supremacy, I recognize that we are approaching what cryptographers call Q-Day, the moment when quantum computers achieve sufficient capability to crack the encryption systems that protect every digital transaction, government communication, and military operation on Earth. The mathematical foundation underlying our entire digital civilization rests upon the assumption that certain computational problems require exponentially increasing time to solve as they grow in complexity. RSA encryption, which protects everything from banking transactions to nuclear weapon command systems, relies on the practical impossibility of factoring large prime numbers using classical computers, a task that would require thousands of years, even with the most powerful supercomputers currently available. But quantum computers operate according to fundamentally different principles, utilizing quantum superposition and entanglement to explore multiple computational paths simultaneously, and Shor's algorithm, developed in 1994, provides a mathematical proof that sufficiently powerful quantum machines can factor these same prime numbers in mere hours or days. What I find most alarming in my analysis is not the theoretical threat, but the accelerating timeline of practical quantum development and the systematic secrecy surrounding national quantum programs. Google claimed quantum supremacy in 2019 with their Sycamore processor, though the specific task they performed, random circuit sampling, has limited practical application. IBM has published a quantum roadmap projecting 100,000 qubit systems by 2033, while their current capabilities hover around 1,000 qubits. The critical threshold for breaking RSA 2048 encryption, according to recent academic research, requires approximately 4,000 stable qubits running Shor's algorithm, placing this capability within potential reach of current development trajectories. China's approach to quantum development represents a different model entirely, characterized by massive state investment and centralized coordination that allows for risks and timelines that private sector research cannot match. The Chinese Academy of Sciences has achieved quantum key distribution over satellite networks spanning thousands of kilometers, demonstrating practical quantum communication capabilities that suggest more advanced quantum computing research than publicly acknowledged. Their quantum satellite MISSIS, launched in 2016, created the foundation for what they term quantum internet infrastructure, and recent intelligence assessments suggest Chinese quantum research benefits from institutional coordination and funding levels that exceed Western quantum programs by substantial margins. The United States government response reveals the severity with which intelligence communities view this threat. The National Security Agency issued an unprecedented advisory in 2015 urging organizations to transition to quantum-resistant cryptography, followed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology launching a multi-year process to standardize post-quantum encryption algorithms. These bureaucratic moves, seemingly technical and routine, represent acknowledgement that current encryption standards will become obsolete within this decade. The Pentagon's Quantum Information Science program operates with classification levels typically reserved for nuclear weapons research, suggesting capabilities and timelines not reflected in public quantum development announcements. What makes this technological race particularly dangerous is the winner-takes-all dynamic it creates in global intelligence gathering and economic espionage. The first nation to achieve cryptographically relevant quantum computing gains temporary but absolute access to previously secure communications and data systems worldwide. Every banking transaction, diplomatic cable, military communication, and corporate trade secret protected by current encryption becomes retroactively vulnerable to any actor possessing sufficient quantum capability. Intelligence agencies have been collecting and storing encrypted communications for decades under the assumption that future quantum computers will make this data accessible, creating massive databases of currently unreadable information awaiting quantum decryption. I am tracking corporate quantum development that proceeds along different timelines and priorities than government programs, creating coordination gaps that increase systemic vulnerability. IBM's quantum network includes over 200 member organizations sharing quantum computing access, while Google's quantum AI research integrates with their massive data processing infrastructure in ways that could accelerate practical quantum applications. Amazon's Bracket quantum computing service provides researchers worldwide with access to quantum hardware from multiple vendors, democratizing quantum experimentation, but also potentially accelerating hostile quantum development. The competitive advantage in quantum computing appears to favor organizations with both advanced classical computing infrastructure and the financial resources to sustain long-term research programs with uncertain outcomes. Financial systems represent the most immediate and catastrophic vulnerability in a post-quantum world. Modern banking relies on public key cryptography for every digital transaction. From credit card purchases to international wire transfers, the SWIFT network, which processes trillions of dollars in international transactions daily, operates under encryption standards that quantum computers can break trivially once sufficient capability is achieved. Cryptocurrency systems face even more immediate threats, as blockchain technologies depend fundamentally on cryptographic hash functions that become vulnerable to quantum attack through different algorithms than those targeting traditional encryption. The intelligence implications extend beyond financial systems and into the core of national security infrastructure. Military communications, satellite control systems, power grid management, and nuclear weapon command and control systems all rely on encryption that becomes obsolete in a quantum environment. The nation that achieves quantum advantage first gains temporary ability to disrupt critical infrastructure, manipulate financial systems, and access military communications of every other country simultaneously. This capability gap could persist for months or years before quantum-resistant systems are fully implemented globally, creating a window of unprecedented strategic advantage. Post-quantum cryptography development represents humanity's primary defense against this quantum threat, but the transition timeline reveals coordination failures that increase systemic risk. NIST's post-quantum encryption standards, finalized in 2024, provide mathematical frameworks believed to resist quantum attack, but implementing these standards across global digital infrastructure requires coordination between governments, corporations, and technology vendors that has proven historically difficult to achieve. Legacy systems, particularly in critical infrastructure and military applications, often cannot be updated quickly due to operational requirements and security validation processes that span years. I am observing escalation patterns in quantum research that suggest major powers recognize we are approaching decisive capabilities. China announced plans for a $15 billion national laboratory for quantum information sciences, while the United States National Quantum Initiative Act allocated significant federal funding for quantum research coordination. The European Union's quantum flagship program represents a €1 billion investment in quantum technologies, and private quantum computing companies have raised billions in venture capital funding. These investment levels indicate that quantum supremacy is viewed as essential for maintaining technological and military competitiveness. The corporate espionage implications of quantum computing create immediate economic warfare potential that extends beyond traditional intelligence gathering. Trade secrets, research and development data, competitive intelligence, and proprietary algorithms protected by current encryption become accessible to any actor with sufficient quantum capability. The pharmaceutical industry, which relies on encrypted protection of drug research worth billions in development costs, faces the possibility that quantum-enabled competitors could access and exploit years of proprietary research instantly. Technology companies maintaining competitive advantage through proprietary algorithms and user data face similar exposure. What particularly concerns me in this analysis is the asymmetric nature of quantum threats and the difficulty of attribution in quantum-enabled cyber attacks. A successful quantum intrusion into encrypted systems leaves minimal forensic evidence compared to traditional cyber attacks, as quantum computers can decrypt communications without the target systems detecting unauthorized access. This capability provides plausible deniability for state-sponsored quantum attacks and makes international response coordination extremely difficult. the quantum advantage holder can conduct extensive intelligence gathering operations without triggering the defensive responses typically associated with major cyber attacks. The timeline convergence between climate change, resource competition, and quantum capability development creates what strategic analysts term a complexity cascade that overwhelms traditional diplomatic and military response mechanisms. Nations facing resource scarcity and climate migration pressures may view quantum supremacy as essential for maintaining domestic stability and international competitiveness. The quantum race therefore intersects with every other major geopolitical challenge, potentially accelerating conflicts and reducing cooperation precisely when global coordination becomes most necessary. International law and treaty frameworks prove completely inadequate for managing quantum weapons and quantum intelligence capabilities. Unlike nuclear weapons, which require visible infrastructure and materials that can be monitored through satellite imagery and radiation detection, quantum computing development occurs in university laboratories and corporate research facilities using equipment and materials that serve legitimate commercial purposes. The dual-use nature of quantum research makes arms control verification nearly impossible, while the immediate applicability of quantum computers to both civilian and military uses eliminates the clear boundaries that traditional arms control treaties require. As I conclude this analysis, I recognize that the quantum race represents more than technological competition. It represents a test of whether international cooperation can manage transformative technologies that fundamentally alter the balance of power between nations and the relationship between governments and their citizens. The decisions made about quantum development, deployment, and regulation over the next 5 years will determine whether quantum computing becomes a tool for enhanced human capability or a weapon that destabilizes the digital infrastructure upon which modern civilization depends. The quantum revolution is not approaching. It is already underway, and its consequences will define the strategic landscape for generations.